There. I think that's better. All right. We'll get this one day. This is all new to me. I'm not a tech guy. I don't do this stuff. We did a live stream test in the version that was like a couple days ago where we basically turned the phone sideways and everything worked fine, but now it's not wanting to work fine. Now it's good. Okay, good. We're good. All right, here we go. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Chris Hyde. If you don't know who I am, welcome to Buzzmill's Lumber Society. Lumber Society is all about outdoor education, community building, organizing people together with community at the center there to focus on the preservation of old skills that have obviously sustained us for thousands of years. So here in my house, it is a beautiful Thursday evening. I was out exploring the Greenbelt today, just getting out of the house slowly, kind of enjoying the wildlife of the spring. Coming back, there's a bunch of bird nests out in my backyard, so squirrels are all over the place. I'm really enjoying just watching nature. So if y'all are at home, also enjoying it, just let us know, like, what are you seeing? Are you seeing anything that you've never seen before? Last week we talked about nature journals and setting up your nature journal for the first time and some things that you maybe wanted to go out there and look and see and explore. Did anybody see anything out there that you haven't seen before? I've always had friends tell me, like, oh man, for the first time ever, I saw this like weird looking black and white hawk looking thing. And I'm like, oh, is it like a cara like this? And they're like, yeah, that's it. And they're like, I've never seen those before. I'm like, dude, they've been around forever. You're just, it's just for the first time it's coming into your awareness, and now you're seeing it more and more and more. It's like obviously that old saying when somebody shows you a car that you've never seen, suddenly you see the car everywhere. It's like, well, it's been there for a long time. I'm sure you're just now, it's in your awareness. So, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for viewing with us last Thursday where we talked about that stuff. Just wanted to give a plug to the Buzzmill. They are open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. That means all their food, the plow bow, the J&L barbecue, plow burgers, all of that stuff is available from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Okay, so that's all coffee, all food, as well as their merch. Right now, we are doing do-it-yourself quarantine kits. If you're not familiar with that is basically the Blue Ribbon Pintwood Derby. It is benefiting all of the City of Austin service industry workers. And what you can do at Buzzmill is you can purchase what is called a Ricky Bobby. And a Ricky Bobby is going to come with food, drinks. It's basically a meal package, but it's also got a Pintwood Derby car that you can put together. And once all this is over, you're going to come back to Buzzmill, and we're going to do a little race with these Pintwood Derby cars, which I think is a lot of fun. So you can get online at buzzmillcoffee.com, and from there you can check out all the different things happening there, and you can place orders there and learn more about that Pintwood Derby race. And that's sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon, by the way. So hopefully you all had a lot of fun last week setting up your nature journal. If you've not done that, get that done soon. We're going to be going out this week, and you're going to have a little task to do this week. It's going to involve a little bit of your nature journal. But tonight we are here to talk about go bags or survival bags or bug out bags or bobs or whatever term you have dubbed these kits that you are going to utilize in order to pick up, run, grab, go. Maybe they're out in your car already. Maybe you keep one in your closet next to your door. Maybe you've got one at work. There's places that you can keep these things anywhere, obviously. This is kind of an interesting subject. I've gotten into so many debates and so many discussions. The survival world, I'll just tell you now, it's like full of ego. It's full of a lot of ego. I don't know what it is about the survival community that just really attracts that type of person. But you'll find what I'm about to say in this talk tonight. You can pick it all apart and say, oh, well, that's not accurate and that's not accurate. Well, you could do that with anything in the world of survival. So just know that this is kind of a sensitive subject to some people. But what is a survivor bag? That's the first question. What is a go bag? It's anything that you have, in my opinion, kind of distilled down to the most simple and plain and effective tools as well as means for staying alive. That's it. You've basically boiled down to these are the most important things that I need to keep on me in order to keep my life continuing day to day, okay? That's basically what it is. So they can vary by your needs, right? So obviously, if you're in an urban situation and you're dealing with survival, that might be really different from people who are in the wilderness dealing with survival. Okay, so obviously most of us, we're dealing with survival in an urban setting right now, right, day to day with all the corona. But somebody who's in the wilderness, they're going to need totally different items. So first, keep that in mind. And then second, keep in mind the geographical regions that you're in. So if you see somebody who's in Florida is not going to have the same kit as somebody who's up in Washington State, obviously, with what I'm saying. The very first thing that I would say that you would all need to understand are the human needs, right? Human needs, the most basic essentials. And it's kind of like a pyramid, if you will. And so on the very bottom of that pyramid, the foundation is going to be a great attitude, right? A great attitude is going to be the foundation of getting out of that situation alive. Think about all the stories you have heard of all of the people who've just like, man, I had to get out of there. I had to go see my cats. I had to make sure somebody, was looking after my kids. There's so many people out there. I think one of my favorites is the woman who said she was hell-bent on surviving with her positive attitude because for some reason she was worried that EMT people would see her underwear. She said literally that was her thing. That's when they interviewed her, what kept you going? She said she didn't want to see the EMT and the paramedic people to see her underwear. So that kept her alive. Whatever it is mentally that is going to keep you going and keep you going towards life, do that. That attitude is the most important thing. I cannot stress that enough. In fact, we're going to have a live talk on the psychology of survival soon, and we'll be talking a bit about the mental preparedness and things like that, things you can do right now, day to day, to help get that mental strength up. The second thing, obviously, that on top of this pyramid that we're building in the attitude, it's going to be sleep, oxygen, and then water, right? Obviously, those are big three things that human beings need. So we start with that foundation of a positive attitude. Right on top of that, we're going sleep, oxygen, water. Up on top of that, we have maintaining our thermoregulation. 98.6 degrees is where most human beings find that perfect balance, right? So clothing, shelter, and then food. Okay, clother, shelter, and then food right on top of sleep, oxygen, and water, and on top of that attitude. After the clothing, the shelter, and the food, I would say sanitation and first aid is going to be the next needs. After that, I'd say it would be lighting and then communication. And then finally, after all those needs are met, I think that's when you can look to transportation, things like entertainment and all that type of stuff. But get those core basic needs met. Now, when I say those things, don't, for instance, think like that is the only way that it can be. Obviously, if there's a pipe stabbed through your leg, the first aid of that takes precedent over dehydration, right? So you're bleeding out. So sometimes those needs are going to fluctuate. Something might come up first, something might come up later. So attitude, sleep, oxygen, water, clothing, shelter, food, sanitation, first aid, lighting, communication, and finally transportation. So again, remember, those needs may vary. Now, how do you prepare yourself for that? How do you get ready? What I always tell people is if you plan now, right, the stress when it actually hits, it's not that bad. I would take mock tests before, like in high school and things like that. I would take practice tests, and then I would kind of like let that be the stressful moment for me. So once I got to the actual test, it would be like, oh yeah, I've kind of been here, done that. So what I'm saying is prepare these things for yourself and your family now. And so what do those look like? Well, mental and emotional preparations are first, okay? Like I said before with that attitude, or that pyramid of needs, attitude is down there at the very bottom as a foundation. If you've got stress, if you've got all kinds of emotional baggage and things like that, jumping into a survival situation or some kind of pandemic and dealing with that is going to be extremely stressful now. Okay, so you're going to kind of start figuring out tools and recipes and lifestyles that can help the emotional stress that you might be suffering from. Physical preparation, obviously, being able to run, being able to lift yourself, being able to move about, making sure that your body is in your physique is in top order, so when these pandemics and things like that hit, you're ready to go in case you need to leave, in case you need to protect yourself and those around you. Those are all things you need to be thinking about. Material preparations. Right, material preparations meaning different waters, different foods, like tools for cooking, tools for all the different things that you're going to need. And that's obviously what we're talking about this evening. Hazardous scenario preparation. What are some things that are extreme hazard scenarios that you may be facing, right? What obviously the toilet paper. I'm just kidding. But those types of things, you want to be considered those. Hazardous scenarios. Things I would think of as like sanitation. Like, okay, now people are, extremely ill, where water systems are shutting down, where people go into the restrooms, like that type of stuff. Look across third world countries. That stuff kills people tens of thousands annually because of improper sanitation. So look at those types of things. The final thing that I put a little asterisk next to this, I wrote it down, but then I wasn't going to talk about it, but I decided to go ahead and talk about it, and that would be the spiritual preparation. There might be a lot of people out there whose faith is really challenged, or in a moment of total uncertainty, there might not be anything that maybe you feel like your faith let you down because they put you in that situation, or you were put in that situation. But that's something to think about. A friend and I were talking one time, and he was like, what about the spiritual aspect of all this stuff? And I wrote, you know what, I'm going to write that down, just because I know there's a lot of people of faiths out there who may want to be considering that for themselves. So those are the things that I would say to prepare yourself and your family for. If you really think about what are called the rules of 3, that's generally 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years, those types of things. I always tell people you can be dead in 3 seconds if you panic. There was a woman who accidentally crashed her car because a spider was crawling on her dash. Right? The spider actually didn't impose any type of threat to her, but because of the hysteria and the reaction, the panic, she swerved to try to evade this spider, and she ended up crashing her car and crashing into somebody else. So those are the types of things that you got to be kind of careful for. If you panic rapidly, 3 seconds, you could be dead. 3 minutes, if you go 3 minutes without air, that's the kicker there. Generally 3 days, or in extreme cold or extreme hot without shelter, basically, that's the 3 days. You can succumb to hypothermia. Anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks up to with water and food. So 3 days being the water, 3 weeks being the food. And then, an entire group could collapse over a 3-week period or a 3-month period. So let's say you're all ditching out and going out, surviving together, and suddenly your group unit starts collapsing. That can happen in a matter of days, a matter of weeks, a matter of months. So be careful and keep those rules of 3 in your head. You want to think about the type of lifestyle that you have right now and how long you can go without that lifestyle. What I'm saying by that is start mentally preparing those things of, okay, I'm going to go without internet for a while. I'm going to go without seeing my family and friends for a while. I'm going to go without money for a while. Like, how do you do these things? Get used to what you're going to miss and start practicing now. And God, maybe this is something to be said too. Maybe keep a simpler lifestyle for a little while you do this. That'll kind of allow you to get more functional with all of these types of things that you're wanting to do. So here we go. I said, how much of this stuff do I need, right? That's always the question I'm always asked. People always say, how much stuff do I need? How much water? How much food? How much medical supplies? I have no idea. There's no answer to that, because there's no answer to how long this potential pandemic could last, or any pandemic could potentially last. So we don't know. Here's the couple of things that you should be thinking about when you're wondering how much and for how long. You should think about what climate and what season you're in, okay? The climate and the season can dictate, accessibility to certain foods, or logistically whether or not you're going to mobilize. So I'm obviously in Texas, so down here we're not too worried about the winter. But up north, if it's wintertime, your accessibility to resupply those provisions might be limited, right? So you got to think about those type of contingency plans depending on the climate and the weather. Some of the other things that you got to think about is the location and the logistics of your particular house or your particular venue where you're at. How many people are in your family? How many kids? How many elderly? How many people with special needs? You got to account for all those types of things, and then ask yourself, what are the most rudimentary basic needs for them day to day? How long will this emergency last? Once again, huge question. Nobody actually knows the answer to, so we don't know. But I would say always prepare for anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks is generally, I think, a good frame of reference. It's generally what I do, is 3 to 6 weeks. Another question to ask yourself all the time that I never hear people talk about is, do you have any opportunity to resupply? Let's say you've not hoarded, sorry. Let's say you've stockpiled all this stuff and you now are running low. Like, where is the opportunity to resupply that, okay? Do you have any, let's see, a neighborhood support group? Is that an opportunity for you? Could you create any type of local support group where you all try to trade tools, use tools? A lot of people, what's really shocking is a lot of people don't know their neighbors. During this, I've had a lot of fun getting to really know my neighbors across the street, to my left, to my right, and finding out what it is they do, what their strengths are, what their specialties are, what kind of things that they're into, how can we connect. It's been a lot of fun. They found out that I'm like this big survival guy, so they're all like, oh, cool, well, it's taken care of, right? We're just going to go over to Chris's house. And I'm like, okay, sure, I guess we could be on a team together. But that's something else to keep in mind, too. Get to know those people really, really well before you put them on your team. Imagine, running around doing the apocalypse type thing, trying to survive, and the person, who you picked to be on your team, you just absolutely loathe because you didn't spend enough time with them to get to know them. Like, holy cow. I'm sure there's movies about that somewhere. So, couple of other things. Do you have the means to improvise any of those needs from your local environment? So that's really where the question of the Lumber Society comes from. That's what we're teaching you to do. We're teaching you to implement tools and resources from the wilderness and from the wild landscape. So how effective are you at doing that stuff? I have a school for kids, and I always tell the kids in this one year we did a project where everything that they touched in one day, they had to write down. And then once they were done with that, they had to bring that assignment to me the next week at class, and then every single thing that they touched and wrote down, I asked them, what can you create from that list from the woods, right? So ask yourself that. So there's an assignment for you if you really want to challenge yourself, is go grab a notebook, everything you touch in a one-day period, write it down, and then at the end of that day, look over that stuff and ask yourself, how many of these things could I create from the woods, right? Bowls, spoons, cups, bags, clothes, shoes, hats, all those things that you touch. How many of those things can you recreate, right? And that's why you now know why we do what we do at the Lumber Society. So what gear do we use? We've talked about how much stuff do we need. We've talked a little bit about the rules of three. We've talked about radical simplicity and what to do to prepare. So what is the gear? What type of things do we need? Well, you can kind of do two things. You can either go buy a kit, which you're kind of, unfortunately, at the mercy of whoever put that kit together. And you also got to think that they're probably not really looking and concerned for your safety. They're more concerned for their profit. So first of all, think about that. You don't ever want to be, again, the victim of somebody's profits, okay? So that's one of the best reasons to make your own kit. And finally, think about, there's no one kit out there that you're going to buy where it has everything, okay? Where you can go to the Arctic, tundra as well as the South American Amazon rainforest. There's no one kit that's going to do it all. So I would definitely say put together a kit for you in your area, okay? What does that mean? That means your personal needs, everything that you know how to do will be within that kit. So, and it'll be easily and effectively replaced, any of those gear, any of those items that get worn out. You'll know how to use them best, and you'll know how to easily replace them as well. So that's why I would suggest always making your own kit and never buying a kit from somebody else. You want to prepare your kit to be extremely simple, affordable to your budget. Like, please don't go into debt over this. Always think about, too, I run into a lot of people who are like, yeah, I just got this kit. It's got all these things in it. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how much money did you spend on that? And they're like, oh, try $350, $400. But I'm like, when are you going to use it, right? Now, let's say it's different between I bought the bag one week, I bought the knife another week, right? I bought the metal container the third week, right? And so you see what I'm saying is you slowly build your kit over time. Now, if you think there's an absolute catastrophe coming, then by all means go and max out your credit cards and do whatever you think you've got to do. That's not financial advice, but if you think that it's really the end of the world, then by all means, take care of yourself. So you want to consider what type of financial situation you're in and then act accordingly. You want it to be lightweight and portable. Anything that's over 30 pounds, to me, in my opinion, is a heavy, heavy, heavy bug out bag. My pack's right around 28 pounds. And depending on whether or not I take some things off of that and then put them on my body, it could be even less. So lightweight and portable is extremely important, so under 30 pounds. You also want it to be durable and dependable. What does that mean? That means don't buy the cheap stuff. One time I bought it was like a chainsaw wire thing for cutting trees, and I went out to the field to go test it. I pulled 3 times on that thing, and it popped. And so I knew, good, well, at least that wasn't the moment where I actually needed to build a survival shelter and depended on that thing, and now I don't have it. So always test your gear out. Don't buy super cheap stuff, meaning quality. You know, if it's cost effective, grab it. You want it to be appropriate for your environment. You want it to be waterproof. Okay, you want it to be made with items that have potentially multiple uses. So if you were to bring a bandana on your kit, there's so many things a bandana can do. Rope, tarps, all those things. There's a lot of things that those things have multiple uses. You don't want to bring like one thing that can only do that one thing, because it's going to take up space, it's going to take up weight, et cetera, et cetera. You want to have a gear that helps conserve your calories, okay? So anything that's like cumbersome or hard to use or hard to get started or causing you to set up and it's taking more caloric intake than it's going to give back, get rid of that stuff. Okay, you want to make sure it's from items that can be used if you're injured. So anything that's extremely difficult to manage or operate, if you're in a situation where you're potentially injured, it's going to be way more difficult to use that item. And finally, again, make sure it's from items that can easily be replaced and managed, meaning kept up with, easily maintained, cleaned, etc. And finally, the last thing is field test all that stuff. Once you put together this bug out bag, once you put together this survival kit, go ahead and go to the woods and test it. I love to go camping with just that backpack full of stuff that I've purchased and just see what it is that it's capable of doing. And I give myself little challenges that I have to complete. Okay, make a fire only using the matches, make a fire only using the ferrocerium rod, all these different things. And play with your kit. The more you play with it, the more that you get to know that thing, the easier it's going to be. And honestly, when you find yourself in a survival situation and you actually need to use that kit, I'm just going to tell you this from experience, you're going to be so excited to grab that bag and be like, yes, finally, like, here we go. I've been preparing for this my whole life, right? I think all those preppers during this quarantine thing were pretty excited to be like, all right, I'm going to go get in my bunker now. And I get maybe shoot off some of those 50,000 rounds that I've been storing. Maybe not. So finally, we're going to get down into the actual list of items to be considered. Now, this is a big list of items. Out of this big list of items, you all should pick what you think is most appropriate for you. These are just things that I have recommended or carry on me. By the way, I'm not making any money off saying any of these things. These are just items that I have as a survivalist been using for a long time. I don't think there's any actual brand names in here, but we're just going to go down this list. If you see or if you hear something or you have a question, just go ahead and start throwing it up here on the chat, and I'll be sure to bring up those questions, and let's start getting that going up. There we go. So item number 1 is a bandana. Always have a bandana on you. Bandanas are used for so many different things, from purifying water, potentially be obviously big debris, getting that out of there, sweat, collecting dew off the ground. I mean, anything from signaling. There's so many things a bandana is good for, so definitely have a bandana. A camp knife, a really good Mora camp knife. I always keep this around my neck. Anybody who knows me, every time you see me, there's a knife around my neck. I'm sure people are weirded out by it sometimes. A folding saw is extremely important. Everybody always argues, should you have a saw? Should you actually have a hatchet? I don't know. I think a hatchet's too heavy in my personal opinion, but some people cannot live without a hatchet. But I always say a folding saw. I usually will run circles around people who have hatchets when I have my folding saw. Ferro rods, matches, lighters, anything that's going to start a fire for you, okay? And again, make sure it's a good quality tool that you are extremely familiar with. I went out one time on a little survival trip, and I had no idea how to use this certain type of like striker tool. And it was a lot of fun getting to learn while I was sitting in the rain, struggling and cold and wanting a fire. So I learned from my own advice there. Candle. A candle is great because if you, let's say, have a lighter, you can actually hold that lighter for a long time and waste a lot of that fuel getting your fire going. Or if you have a small candle, just boom, hit that candle and then put that candle underneath something, and then you can maybe slowly pull that candle back out, blow it out, put it back in your pack, and it's basically just like a little miniature fire to get everything going. Another reason I keep a candle in there is quick hypothermia prevention. What you do is you grab a tarp, a space blanket, a wool blanket, anything that's pretty dense, pretty heavy, pretty large surface area. You simply put that candle down on the ground, you huddle over it, you take the space blanket or the tarp and you wrap it around yourself, and you've basically created a little microscopic climate right around your body. And within probably 60 seconds, you're going to be sweating from that little tiny candle, creating so much heat around your body inside, trapped in that tarp area. So a candle can be a really quick and effective way to get rid of hypothermia potentially. Heavy duty tarp, I was just talking about, a wool blanket. Now again, don't go crazy, and go buy you an $800 Hudson Bay wool blanket. You don't need to do all that. Just go down to your local kind of Banana Bay store, military type surplus store. Those wool blankets in there are just fine for the everyday average person. I mean, unless you're just like always in the Adirondack backpacking through Canada, maybe then you'd want a Hudson Bay. But for now, just something simple, tarp, a heavy duty style tarp, and a wool blanket will get you going. A metal cup and a metal water bottle, usually they're one and the same. In my situation, they are. It's basically the metal cup goes into the metal water bottle. The reason you want two components, a lot of people always ask, why two? Why do you always have two metal things? You're wanting to boil the water potentially in one, right? While the water you previously boiled is cooling over here, and then you can drink. Think about it like this. You're really, really thirsty, but you've only got this boiled water that's scalding hot that you just boiled. Now you're going to have to wait till that scalding water cools down to the point that you drink it. Then you're going to have to put more in there and do it again. So you're basically prolonging this process of rehydrating your body because you only have one vessel or one container. So keep that in mind. Let's look here. Dried food is always a good thing to have. Storage food, any type of bars are great. Protein bars, those are great. Cliff bars, a lot of people bring those things. Duct tape, obviously, it's a great fix, great wrap, fix real quick, basically a binding agent. It's wonderful. Tinder, different types of tinder I keep on my body all the time. There's whether it's juniper bark, actual juniper bark, or cotton soaked in paraffin wax and things like that. If you've ever seen those little tinder starting balls, those little tricks, you can keep those in your bug out bag. A first aid kit obviously is a great addition to any type of bug out bag. You're going to need to help yourself out in the backcountry. Generally, I just keep something for wounds, different types of medications, an irrigator for syringes, duct tape. There's other bandanas and things like that, and there's magnifying glasses and tweezers, things like that. First aid kits you could go real deep into first aid kits just in a bug out bag sense, so we won't get too deep into that, but you have first aid kit. Fishing kit is another great thing to have. Hooks, lines, sinkers. Obviously, you're not keeping bait inside that thing unless they're lures and things like that, jigs. You also want to keep a slingshot. I have found that the most effective way to get small animals, field mice and wood rats and all those types of things, squirrels, is with a slingshot. A slingshot's extremely effective tool at harvesting food. Also a trapping kit. So I don't know if you're familiar, but in Amazon they've got these big old rat traps that are just huge rat traps. I keep 2 of those in my bag, and what I'll do is you can bait those and then just place those around the woods, and rats will come up to those things with nobody, they love them, especially if you've got some kind of odd food like that Snickers, salty, anything peanut buttery. They're going to come out over there and you're going to get to eat. If you've never eaten a rat, it's pretty interesting. So slingshots, a trapping kit, headlamp, obviously, flashlights, large garbage bags. Large garbage bags are so versatile. I cannot stress enough how versatile a garbage bag like that can be. Everything from collecting water, making shelters, carrying supplies, signaling. There's so many different things a large garbage bag can do. So keep a couple of those in your bag as well. A map and compass. First of all, you got to know how to read the map, and you got to know how to use the compass. So unless you're pretty familiar with those things, there are classes online that you can take learning to use a map and compass. I highly recommend you do that before you go out to the woods and just start trying to use a map and compass. And finally, a couple of last things, a small hand lens. I usually keep that in my med kit, by the way. That's usually to help me look for splinters and things like that, as well as start fires, because it is kind of acting like a Fresnel lens or a magnifying lens. Okay. Surveyors tape. Surveyors tape is a great little way to get to play Hansel and Gretel one day if you ever get totally lost. You can rip off that surveyor's tape, kind of hang it on trees at eye level to the direction you're going. And what's going to happen then is the search and rescue folks, the people who are coming to look for you, they're going to start seeing that surveyor's tape, and you're going to be like, man, there was no supplies or water or food or anywhere in this area, and I had to go somewhere where it was better supplies and resources, so I went that way, and I let you all know by marking my trail with surveyor's tape, right? You can do the same thing with articles of clothing, the bandana, the duct tape, any of that stuff, but making sure you have some type of something so that you can mark your path, right? Some type of something to mark your path. It's a great word there. And let's see here. A multi-tool. So if you're familiar with multi-tools, something like a, what are those things called? Those Gerber multi-tools? Leathermans. There we are. Leatherman. If you've got a Leatherman, those are great. Those clamps are really, really good for prying, for digging, for all kinds of cool tools. Whenever you're doing the pot in boiling water, I use my multi-tool clamps to pick up the hot water out of the fire, right? In case you don't have any type of tongs or something that you're improvised to make, those hot little pokers are great. So, let's see here. We also have a sewing kit. A sewing kit just kind of for simple repairs and things such as that. It looks here too. Parachute cord, so military cord. I usually have anywhere from 50 to 150 feet of that in my bag. I think in my truck bag I've got 150 feet. In my regular bag I've got 50 feet. Plenty of rope to set up a tarp shelter, other things like that. You know, set up hoist systems to get food out of the way in case you're in backcountry. And finally, there's a couple more things here on this list. A signal mirror in case you need to signal for help from a plane if you're down in the valley. And there's also space blankets. Those are great tools for signaling as well. And they're also, if you've never used a space blanket, it's hysterical how fast you get. You know, it's really hot inside those things really quickly, especially the ones they're designed to, attract the sun or, capture the sun. And water purification tablets are also in that bag. A whistle, and finally Ziploc bags. And that's it. Those are the things that, again, I'm throwing out things that are in my bag. I'm throwing out things that I use regularly. I'm throwing out things that I'm familiar with. There might be something in there that I didn't even talk about. I don't have any type of allergies. So maybe in your bag you put an EpiPen. Maybe you put Benadryl. Maybe you put some type of medication in there to help you with whatever issue that you have or whatever issue your family members have. This is all stuff that's for you. That's why I highly recommend never, ever, ever buy a survival kit, because those people didn't, they're not selling that for you. They're selling it to make a profit, okay? So here's what I would say. I would say if you're going to have 5, out of all those things that I listed, 5 of those things, what 5 would they be? Okay, that's where people always go, well, I'm not going to buy all that stuff. I'm not going to carry all that stuff. What are the top 5? What are the top 10? The top 5, I'd say, are something that can use to slice or cut or puncture, right, or shape wood. Okay, so a knife is going to be the first thing that I would say. Something to create cover and protection, a little microclimate. So a tarp and a wool blanket would be the second thing that I would grab. Something to keep yourself hydrated. Okay, so I would say a metal water bottle, something that you can boil water in, would be the third thing that I would grab. And finally, the last 2 is going to be something to create that fire, to purify and cook that food, and to keep that body of yours warm, so a fire starting tool. And then the very last thing would be some type of implementing of rope or binding, right? So carrying rope on you, that's going to be the 5th thing. So knife, tarp and wool blanket, water bottle, something to make a fire, and something to bind things down. That would be the very basic things that you would want to have on you almost at all times. So this past weekend, I was on a road trip, and I had a back tire go completely flat, right? And I was just thinking about all the different things that could happen, and I was in the city, and we were passing through a city. I was lucky. and we were only half a mile from a Discount Tire. But I had one of those Fix-A-Flat cans in my truck, right? So think beyond the survival bag. Think the survival bag for the car too, right? Extra gas, extra water. If you know that you've been having radiator problems, you're about to go on a road trip and it might be in a back area, extra water for that radiator. Anything like that you can think of, okay, put in your car. And so that's where we're kind of coming down to the very last bit of this, which is other types of bug out bags. Obviously, there's ones for your car and so many more. But from here, if y'all want to start asking any questions, I'm going to turn it over to the Q&A section and go ahead and just start chit-chatting away here. I'm going to read a couple of the comments while we get started. So give me just a second here. Okay. So, I am seeing, got a lot of people watching, so hello everybody. It's sideways. Yeah, I know it's sideways. It's good now. Okay, good. Yay. Saw stick bug the other day. Yes, they are all over. So stick bugs are fascinating. They have an interesting lifestyle where they'll spike. So suddenly a couple of years ago, you'll see like 5 million stick bugs. And then the next 5 years, you won't see any. And then it'll spike back up to like 5 million. So in the next 2 years, you're going to see 1 million stick bugs coming up soon. Also saw some blind snakes. Yeah. Mark Fagan, thank you so much for remembering this. You can donate. Anybody who would like to contribute to Natureversity or Buzzmill, please donate at Natureversity. I don't have my little sign up here with me anywhere. Where is it? It's around here somewhere. I'll get it in a minute. Post any questions you have for Chris here in the meantime in the comments. Correct. Chris will eat you. Yeah, sometimes, maybe. Where can I apply to join your survival team, right? Anywhere. Just tell me that you want to, that you want to join. Matthew says, the Apocalypse Dating Guide. Yeah, I would wonder. To be honest, it's kind of a funny thing. I don't admit this to everybody, but anybody who like really, really knows me well, I do play video games from time to time. And this whole quarantine thing, I've just been playing the living crap out of Fallout 4. Just pretending like, that disaster area is like what I'm dealing with. And I've just been having like so much fun pretending like, oh yeah, I'm in the real world disaster scenario. So it's been fun to goof around and relive some old moments. Apocalyptic Dating Guide. Somebody should write a book for that though. And if you've never seen that Apocalypse Zombie Guide, the guy wrote it as though it's a real like survival guide, but it's obviously extremely comical. Pick that book up. It's really funny. Dig up your gold and silver from the backyard. Yes. Get rid of those shekels. I had a survival kit I carried in the military, and I had a candle in it. It melted, and it made a survival wax block. Are there any candles that you recommend for more Texas climates? Yes, that is a good point. That wax tends to melt in Texas. That's a good question. Good question. I haven't had that problem yet, to be honest. I'm trying to think what kind of candles would not melt. That's a good question. Thank you for asking that one. I'm actually going to write that down right now. Texas candles. Awesome. Okay, let me see here. It says, hopefully search and rescue finds you and not the witch. Yeah. Let's see. It says, video is kind of quiet. I have full laptop volume and I can still barely hear you. Oh, dang. Okay, something to work on for next time. Thank you, Matt, for noticing that. Replying to Matt, thought I was the only one. I wonder if it's this microphone. Oh, is that better? Can I talk into this thing a little louder? Is that it? What about alcohol for wound sanitation? Yeah, I would be real careful about, dumping alcohol into wounds like that. You can potentially cause harm to the tissue that is then trying to repair itself. You're basically killing the nerve endings of the tissue so that they can't repair themselves. That's why people who pour hydrogen peroxide and things like that on there, you want to be real careful about that. I think using alcohol around a wound and kind of cleaning it up is good. But I'm not a medical doctor, and so I'm not totally 100% sure on that. But keeping alcohol, prep pads, wipes, things like that could be beneficial for sure. Max Brooks's The Zombie Survival Guide. Yes, there you go. That's it. And let's see. Good on my end. Yes. I don't see any other questions. So I think the most important thing, that sounded better when you got closer to the mic. Okay, there we go. So that's what I'll try to work with that. So my main focus for tonight in this talk was to just give you all the opportunity to let you know these are what I would do. This is what I have in my go bags, in my bug out bags. Some of the items there. It says, "Hey brother, miss you. Herbs are always great." Yes, absolutely. Herbal remedies too. I definitely have herbal remedies that I use. Wound salves, wound powders, things like that. I've got a lot of that. If you're looking for any type of herbal class that you would like to take, I would highly recommend the Human Path, Sam Kaufman and Suchel. They are an amazing outdoor education facility in San Antonio, and a lot of their classes are online, so you don't have to worry about going down there or the drive. You can take everything online, and they've got everything under the sun when it comes to herbal medic type remedies. Sorry. I just see another one that says, "We went primitive camping a couple weeks ago. Everything was, what would Chris do here?" Yeah. Camping's fun for me. I really enjoy it. The last few years, I've started taking less and less and less stuff. And if you ask my family, the last time we went, I didn't bring anything. And I was sleeping in a tree and they couldn't find me. And they're like, "Where the heck is Chris? Where's Chris?" And then I think one of my cousins was like, "I think he's in that tree back over there." And I fell out of the tree and just plopped to the ground. And they're like, "Did you really sleep in a tree?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So the more you go out with this gear and the more you have fun, the more you slowly replace the gear with a skill. And that's the main focus of Lumber Society always, is to get rid of all that stuff and eventually just have our hands and our wits, right? Our awareness, our proper attitude, and our sense of community. And through that, we will build, right, again, around a much more holistic lifestyle. I would assume living in the woods in conjunction with nature is more holistic than now. Beeswax candles don't melt easily. Exactly. Thank you, Leah, for making that comment. Beeswax candles don't melt easily. So yeah, the carnauba, paraffin, all that type of stuff I think does melt a lot easier. And that's to be said too, because I put more beeswax into my wound salves here in Texas. But when I made my wound salve here and then I sent it to a friend who lived in Washington State, she said it got so cold up there that it was hard for her to use the salve. So you can kind of see how bioregions change things. I've been trying to replace my gear with more beer. Well then, hey, come down to Buzzmill soon then, Nick, because we're still offering it 7 days a week. I almost said 8 days a week. Chris's needs some vacation time. So I hope you all had a great evening. Once again, if you'd like to donate anything to me, it is at Natureversity. I'm going to get a pen right here and write that down. At Natureversity, and buzzmillcoffee.com. There it is. Okay, so if you'd like to donate anything to me, at Natureversity is my Venmo, and then check out buzzmillcoffee.com. That's how you can order everything from our wonderful Buzzmill location down on Riverside. So if you don't have any more questions, we will be back in 2 weeks. So not next Thursday, but the following Thursday. I'm not even really sure what we're going to be talking about, but it's going to be fun. I've got a lot of stuff that I've been putting together. So your assignment, Lumber Society, for this week is to begin putting together your survival bag. I would call it, honestly, your adventure pack, because I want you to go out onto adventures with these. I don't want you to look at that bag and perceive it as though it's a thing to manage your fear. I want you to look at that bag, and more appropriately, I want you to think of something that you're going to have, something you're going to have fun with, right? So when you look at the bag, don't be afraid of it, but be excited about grabbing it and going to the woods and playing with it. Mess around with stuff in your backyard. Buy a saw online or a knife online, play with it in your backyard. Any recommendations that you would like, saying, hey, I see there's 3 or 4 different types of water bottles or 3 or 4 different types of saws. Like anything you want to know, just shoot me an email and I'd love to answer your questions, or you can always Facebook message us. That's fine too. We try to check that each and every day. See a couple more questions in here. Try the honey badger. Yes, oh my God, that's my favorite drink at Lumber Society. I started my survival bag already. I just need to add more to it. Is there a place where we could post and communicate with each other? Ah, thank you for asking that question, Mark. I am writing that down. I would say yes, that we will have that available for you. Mark, did you hear that? We are going to look into a place where we can all collectively communicate with each other. Absolutely. First aid is always a great place to start, but avoid the expensive kits. Absolutely, Brandon. Avoid the expensive kits. Build it yourself, right? Build it yourself. I would say just start with those 5 basic things. I would get a really good tarp and a really good wool blanket, right? I'd get a metal water bottle, a knife, some paracord, and just put all that in a little bag and play with that. Put together a tarp shelter one day. Go and try to make a fire using just your knife. Put together, some type of fire and then purify water using your metal water bottle. Play with these tools, folks. Play with them. Have fun with them. If you want to get together with me and play with your survival kits, maybe we can make a day to do that. In fact, that would actually be pretty freaking cool. Let's talk about that right now. What if we did a go bag camp out, right? What if we did a camp out where we all brought our go bags, we just camped out, and whatever was in our go bag, right? That would be freaking cool, right? I think that would be really cool. So maybe we do a go bag camp out soon. We all make our bags and we go camping. Let's talk about that. In the meantime, we are going to get together a place where we can all communicate effectively more, right? It says, I keep mine organized with Amazon stacking cubes. I think the cheaper way is plastic bags. Yeah, there you go. So just something to think about there. Finally, Natureversity, my school for kids, we are putting together some at-home programming, and I would love anyone out there. I'm a nature nerd. I don't know graphic design. I don't know content editing. I don't know camera and video editing. I don't know any of that stuff. But I'm looking for people out there who are familiar with basically content creation in an online sense. So if you know anybody, or if you would like to get involved in something that's for kids in an at-home nature study program, let me know, and I would love to collaborate with you on some things and chat with you about what I'm creating. So any other questions? Throw them up there now. If not, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday evening, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Please get outside, go exploring, go for a hike, get outside, go stargazing, get out of the city, drive around. This is the best time to start exploring new places. It's easy to get there. There's not a lot of people out. Go have fun, everybody. Do not stay at home all day, every day. Meaning just get outside. Even if it's in your backyard, your side yard, something. Get out and let nature be a part of your life. I would not know what I would have done in this quarantine if I didn't have my backyard full of birds and full of squirrels and full of wildlife and all the different types of things parked right next door to my house. I'd be going crazy. So, plus all of you are giving me motivation to keep doing this wonderful job that I do. So thank you all so much. I hope you'll have a great evening. That will wrap it up, and we'll see y'all in 2 Thursdays. Take care.